Hello and welcome back to the Bright Founders Talk podcast from Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. My name is Chris and today I'm excited to welcome someone with a wealth of experience in business, especially involving health. Miguel Azevedo, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. It's a busy day, but I managed to book a slot at around lunchtime. So I'm really happy to speak with you today.
Excellent. Yeah, just consider it like a little break, from the...
Yeah, exactly.
What makes a good boss in your opinion?
What makes a good boss? So I think throughout my career, what I found that was most inspiring to people who report to you is the ability to identify and clearly state what direction you're going in towards your reportees. I think if you are able to successfully convey the notion of a direction to a team and convey basically what exactly your objectives are, most of the times the level of involvement that you will be required to is very low. So if you staff well, if you have A players around you, if you just point that direction successfully, I think that makes you an effective leader at least.
Right, kind of be like a good guide rather than sort of a too authoritative.
Yeah, I think it also, I'm sure that your mileage might vary, right? But I tend to surround myself with really, really good people. So I've never been in a position where I felt like I should micromanage something or pay a lot of attention to what exactly is going on at the detail level, because I kind of trust the people that I surround myself with. So this notion of identifying strategy and identifying direction makes it so that in a way, everything that you have to do from a leadership perspective is just slight target improvements or slight, very, very small corrections. The people that you're on kind of take it to a good place, I think. So that's the one. And that's the one that I praise as well over my career for the people that actually have led me. And the thing that I have learned the most, like the attitude that I've learned the most from.
All right. So after, a stressful day being a boss, how do you unwind or how do you relax? What do you get up to?
Right. So it's invariably, if you look there to the back, there's a lot of medical books, but there's also a lot of science fiction.
Okay.
And I do read a lot. So that is pretty much everything that I do to wind down after the kids are in bed and the day is over. There is, though, I have a thing that is strange, which is I kind of have a work day, and then there's a period at the end of the afternoon with the kids and so back and so forth. And then I read a bit, and then there's the American kind of schedule. So between midnight and 3 a.m., I'm again on the labor. But yes, for that period of time after the kids are asleep and after dinner, it's reading almost exclusively.
Nice. All right, good. Get away from screens and that kind of.
Oh yeah, it's really important. Don't you think so, Chris? It gets very burdensome if you're always looking at the screen all the time.
Yeah, I love reading, so I feel a great sense of I think my brain has this feeling of relief when you just sort of look at something that's not, shining back at you. It's like, oh, okay, perfect.
Oh, absolutely. I fully agree with that.
And when you were younger, what did you want to be growing up?
I never really knew. I was never really certain of what I wanted to become, and I think that my career kind of shows that. I kind of love everything, and everything that I develop an interest in, I want to study further. So you can look at that from my education, right? So my education is in computer science, then biomedical engineering, then doctorate in neuroscience, and then another master's in American history.
Wow.
So it's I think that I have never been able to identify the thing that I wanted to be. So I decided to be a lot of different things.
Okay. No,
That makes sense.
It's interesting, the last one. So the last one, is that more of just a personal passion or is that linked? How is that linked to work in any way?
Oh, 100%. It's not linked to work at all. And in fact, when I did my doctorate, that was not within my purview of work at all. It was just something that I was really interested in. And I worked at the time, my 9 to 5 was in information security, as it kind tends to be a little bit again, but it had nothing to do with medical research or medtech or whatever. So I was interested in at the time. I was interested in the notion of brain-computer interfaces, and when there was an opening for a doctorate program to investigate kind of that area, I just took it. And I thought it was fun. So I kind of do what sounds like fun at the time.
No, it's good. Yeah, follow what feels good. In terms of your studies and because you 4 degrees, right? Or four?
Yeah.
Four. So
in terms of
no, it's great. But just trying to nail it down a little bit. So like within those degrees or that time studying, I'm just interested, what was your experience between what you learnt theoretically and the course? Was there a lot of practical elements? Is there stuff that you would say kind of helped you to bridge that gap into what you do now, or was it more you had to do it yourself?
I think from an undergrad perspective, a lot of the skill set that you're developing is not necessarily connected with your area of study, or at least like the largest experience or the most significant experience that you'll get there is in terms of learning how to successfully conduct a project, learning how to manage yourself a ton. I think that's one of the most important things that you learn throughout your undergrad. It's learn to fail, like get this understanding that if you don't pull through, you're going to fail, and failure is painful. So from an undergrad perspective, and my degree was very, very theoretical, I think those were the things that were most important, right? But once you get into like postgrads, then you expect actually to for the things that you learn to be practical, to be able to do something with them. Curiously, at this stage, it is very little what I do with any of my current enterprises. There's very little related with what I studied.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's curious. Like, I assume that your next question will have to do somehow with entrepreneurship and companies and M&As and stuff like that.
How did you know? Yeah, exactly. Kind of trying to think like how, because I think there's a serious lack of, from what I've heard and also my own experience at university, bridging the gap between here's the theory and then the world of work where it's like you need to know these people and I think there's not really much from my experience that they do in that terms. It's more you have to kind of find your own people and find your own experience. Did you have the similar experience or not?
It's an interesting question. It's important to reflect on one point. The years when I was doing my undergrad, the length of a degree was 5 or 6 years, and in the meantime, the length of an undergrad changed to 3 years all across Europe. So I do understand where you're coming from. So I do understand the point of like in 6 years, there's a lot of things that you're studying that will not exactly be useful in what you expect to work in. I would assume that there's very little thermodynamics in your software development career, but I think that pretty much all of that teaches you something. I don't fully agree with this notion that young people coming out of universities are that unprepared, especially if you're coming out of a good university and with a reputable degree. Odds are that you learned a lot of skills that can make you successful in life, and those are, you will have learned to take a project to completion. You will learn to kind of rationalize requirements for what you want to do. You will learn to identify and plan your work and communicate your work to other people, either by defending your thesis or by working in groups or stuff like that. So I think that even if you absolutely, utterly suck at your area of studies, if you succeed at these things, odds are that you will become at least a competent 9 to 5er. But the fundamental difference here is, or the fundamental point here is, do you want to be a 9 to 5er? Is that a thing that you want to be? Because if you control these things, if you can communicate, if you are respectable and diligent and you work hard, you're going to do fine at any 9 to 5. Really, you will learn the things that you need to learn. But if that's not your ambition, if your ambition is actually to start something on your own or for yourself, then that skill set it's useful, but might not be enough. I think that we do a good job at large with undergrad education.
If I could talk a little bit about your own experience in your first job. So the first one was Altis or Atelis?
Right. That was still research from the university, right? So that was still.
Okay. And then you also went to IBM after, and you were there for about 7 years, was it? No, sorry.
I was for a while at IBM, lots of different roles, by the way. But so my first role was the first one that you're actually reflecting on was the first product that I actually sold. It was the first company that I sold. Which was yeah. So that was I was doing research in intrusion detection systems, and I still say half jokingly to this day that my claim to fame is that I developed the first self-learning intrusion detection system, because it's kind of true. Like my research was in it was a software product that set up patterns of usage in terms of the network access and identified abnormalities within those patterns. And here's me dating myself. The one of the most impressive things of that project, part of that project, that kind of left people like go ha, was that it was connected to. It had the ability to send SMSs to a phone. So basically, this was like in 2004, I believe. So you didn't really have this notion of reaching people all the time. So one of the main selling points was that if there was an occurrence in your network that was unpredictable, or that an event that you should know about, you could receive an SMS. The system actually sends you an SMS through your SMSC, and I think that was 50% of the reason why I managed to sell it. It was really fun.
That sounds quite ahead of its time in terms of 2004 and that kind of authority system like that. Yeah, it was crazy. Sounds crazy.
There was no iPhone, right?
There was not. Yeah, it was nothing. It was still pen and paper, wasn't it? Just everything was. Yeah. No. Interesting. So, from that time, then in the early career, or also studies as well, just kind of trying to link it to what you do now. Again, is there anything you've picked up that you were like, that I still use that, or I still think about that technique, and I still find it useful with your job now?
I think that there's in each year of your experience, you'll learn something that you'll use your entire life, right? So I think that if I was to pinpoint from that particular point in time, something that I still use to this day is kind of rationalize and put into context everything that you hear and all the opinions that you receive as a professional, as a person, and run it through your own research and run it to your own, rationale, because a lot of people will give you advice, and most of that advice will be well intended. There's good in people, right? You will receive very well intended advice. Most of it is wrong for your context, or most of it is not exactly something that you should take at face value. So the ability to listen more than you speak and grok that information, process that advice, thank for that advice, and then transform it into something usable if that's the case. I think that's usable your entire life, I think.
Okay, see, so kind of just try to take in what people say, but adapt it to your situation and look at your variables and that kind of thing.
Of course, and recontextualize it for yourself, right? And I learned that the hard way. I learned that to, a lot of blood on the wall. It's thinking for yourself is a skill, is a practicable skill that when you start working is not one that you typically have very developed. And I think that's vital. Like, become a person that thinks for themselves, but accept and embrace and think. People are very well intentioned most of the time.
Yeah.
Be receptive and be open to receiving advice, but process it on yourself.
One of the things it said I thought was interesting, just on the opening page, was lending a hand to life science.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just kind of use that as a way to open up the idea of Qity. Like, what problem were you trying to solve, or like what was the idea behind starting it?
I can tell you a very short story. So at a given point, we were working on the research of a glucose monitor. So we were doing medical research on the development of a glucose monitor. One of the this company was based out of California. We had a group running the software part and some of the electronics part here in Europe and Belgium. There is a type of systems that is essential for the development of medical devices, actually, for the development of anything that is highly regulated, which is a quality management system. The quality management system has a technological component, has a document process component to it. And at a given point, we were choosing first and then working with a QMS that we chose. And what we witnessed was that all of the QMS systems in the market that we experienced, that we evaluated, none of them was actually really that great. All of them were very based on kind of translating directly what used to be paper and folder to like now folders and just continue with paper and paper signatures and stuff. And there was very little interaction in the market and automation in the market for the QMSs to actually make your life easier as an engineer, as a medtech, responsible as a manufacturer. So we started conceptualizing that QMS. We started conceptualizing what would be the best version of this product at the core that would actually make everyone's life easier. At a given point, that research organization completed its research, so we completed the cycle, and 5 of us that worked then in that company decided to start then Qity. So we decided to start Qity with the first fundamental purpose of developing that QMS. And when the company closed down, we managed to actually secure the team that we had been working with all that time. So all of those people together then became Qity. We deliver a lot of services to kind of fund the development of the QMS from a self-sustainability perspective. And it's been fun. I think that we are the only organization that I've been a part of with no sales organization, with no business development, and we're never in lack of services to deliver or requests for services, which is pretty neat. But that's the point. That's the purpose. The purpose of that, the first purpose of Qity is to develop the world's best quality management system.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you just said, that last bit, like you don't have sort of business development or sales, because my other thing was, like, from my knowledge, the world of medicine, or the world of health in general, can be quite brutal. I think it can be quite
Yes. Yeah.
Can be quite hard to maybe get into. So I was just wondering, like, in terms of Qity, like, how did the startup get going then? And, like, did you find any difficulty with, I don't know, government regulations or anything like that? How did you kind of get yourself out there?
So that's what we help companies a lot with. It's exactly passing through those difficulties. In one single expression is word of mouth. So as we were working within other companies and within other areas, we developed networks. And it's very interesting because the 5 of us that founded Qity, each one of us has a very different skill set, but we're all, pardon my arrogance, we're all really good at what we do. So the thing is, odds are that if you do a usability engineering project with us, for example, you will not find a better usability engineer than what we have. If you're validating your medical device and you want to submit it to the FDA, for example, and if we help you through it, the next device you will want to do it with us because we make it kind of simple and clean, and we know exactly what we're doing. And because of that, word of mouth. So we've gone through one successful submission. If your experience is great, you're going to tell someone else. Someone else is going to come to us for the same thing. We ended up doing, out of like our small country in Europe, we ended up reaching a Bolivian company, and we helped them submit 2 devices to the FDA, and successfully as well, like at a distance. And that's kind of why we didn't need, until now, I think, business development. Eventually, we're going to get there. I'm sure that eventually we will want to grow at a pace that requires sales. But until now.
So there's 5 of you that started the company, like you said, and that's interesting. So on a human level, What did you look for in a partner? What were you kind of, well, there's five of you, normally it's maybe two or something, but maybe five of you. So what were you kind of thinking, okay, this is a good person to work or team up with? Why, what did you look for?
The parameters that made that simple were the fact that we all worked together for a while, for some time, and we enjoyed working with each other. That was the paramount fundamental point at the core. It was the first sort of project where I engaged with other founders, because there's a whole set of previous enterprise and sales of project and sales of products that I did in parallel to the 9 to 5, but it was always like developing an MVP, developing a product, reaching out to the network, testing with the network, and then someone is always interesting to kind of get it from you and take it from there. So this is the first organization where I'm actually working and partnering with other people. The fact that we replicated the structure that we were using for the development of the glucose monitor, we kind of lifted and shifted that organization and placed it developing another thing, really made us get quickly in the market and get quickly to productive, because we knew what to do. We knew what our roles were and what kind of how we fit together. And the moment that we brought in the rest of the team, then it was just, there was no preparation work or delay at the start. We already knew how to work with each other, already had certain mechanisms, certain processes, and we just went along with it. And that was pretty neat. I just started, so we're just doing a new MVP for a new project called Genuine Motion, which is the second time that I have another founder, but in this case just with one other founder. Which is we're developing software that in real time identifies if a video that's either being streamed or that you have access to, if it is, what are the odds that it is not a real video, so as in created by AI, or if it is like real footage. So it's one thing that I can tell you is that it's easier with 2 people than with 5.
Oh, really? Okay. That was my next question. Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier with 2.
Well, so maybe that would be linked into this next question, but like, what advice would you give someone, a young entrepreneur, maybe looking to get into the world of medical devices or healthcare or that kind of thing? What would you say?
I think there's one really valuable piece of advice that every single founder entrepreneur should bear in mind. It's very easy to fall on the fallacy of, if you develop something that you love and if you build a product that you love, it's going to be successful, or you're going to be able to make a living out of it, or whatever. I think that underestimates how connected your market research is and your success is. So how connected those items are. Your success will most likely than not be based on the receptiveness of the market to whatever you're building, rather than, even if what you're building is really, really good, right? You can build something that is really, really good and it doesn't have a realistic market, and that will fail. You will fail with your product or project or service or whatever. And that's a really, really good lesson. I learned that lesson back in 2008. Back in 2008, I was a bit short for cash. It was a really, really difficult time. As I'm sure it was for everyone. 2008 was complicated.
Right, yeah, the big crunch.
And one of I was trying to find, I never stopped working 9 to 5, but I was trying to find something to do in parallel with that. And I ended up starting a company that called German Speaking Jobs. And that company, the only thing that it did was connect people who spoke German with like service centers around the globe, which has nothing to do with my education. It has nothing to do with anything, right? But it was the right thing to build at the right time. And that by itself guaranteed its success more than if I had built, for example, some security tool back then or some security service organization back then, which I built and failed at as well. So I think that's the one lesson that you should get, that young entrepreneurs should get first and foremost. Assess your market, build where you see the opening. Don't necessarily be seduced by the notion of building what you love.
Right. Just kind of don't have that tunnel vision, kind of maybe look at the
Yeah.
market. And
Yeah.
interesting. A very classic question then about QT. Where do you see it in 5 or 10 years then? What's ahead for you guys?
Oh, it's we have a very solid roadmap, I think. So because given the fact that we are almost at the stage where we're really proud of the QMS and we want to put it out there. At the given point that we've been doing that, we've also been developing our services internally. So, for example, we just started a new vertical within Qity that actually gives us a whole set of new range in the organization towards clinical, for example, clinical affairs, right?
Mm.
So we, over the years, we received a lot of requests for, okay, can you, it's lovely that you can do this software thing, electronics thing, quality regulatory thing, but can you do as well clinical? And for the early years, we always said, well, we can do everything else, just that we really can't. And and that question became so prevalent that at a given point we were okay, like, let's look in the market to see if there's someone that could help us build that. And very casually, we identified this extraordinarily experienced, extraordinarily competent person that all of us agreed was just this is the right person to lead this vertical. So we just launched that vertical of clinical affairs. The In 5 years, my expectation is that not only the QMS will be in the market and it will be well recognized, but also our service competencies will have expanded to the full breadth of medtech. So, and we will be numerous and well known for the excellence in our services across the board.
Brilliant.
I
Nice.
think that would be a good place to be in 5 years, Chris.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, brilliant. Well, I appreciate your time today, Miguel. It's been very interesting to get your insight into the world of business in terms of medicine and also just your growth personally. Sounds very
Sure.
interesting.
I
Brilliant.
appreciate that, Chris, and I do appreciate the questions and the opportunity to speak a little bit about these various things I've been doing with this silly life of
Good. Good. I think lots of people appreciate it. Thank you for your time and wish you all
mine.
the best.
Thanks, Chris. You too.